Welcome everybody to the stream. Let's start now. Hey! Welcome to the third installment of the series where we talk about the new releases that just came out from Black Chantry Productions and for the 5th edition Vampire the Eternal Struggle. If you haven't watched the first two videos and you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put the links in the description below. Otherwise, I think you have like a couple of days on Twitch before the previous video goes away. Anyway, we have our favorite guest today. Again, still camera shy. But still happy to share his thoughts with us on the new deck. Ladies and gentlemen, John. Woo!
Hello.
Hello indeed. Ooh, you're a bit loud. Let me... Yep, no, that's good, I think.
Alrighty.
All right. So,
Yep.
For those who are new to Vampire the Eternal Struggle, Vampire the Eternal Struggle, or VtES, is a multiplayer, award-winning multiplayer card game developed by White Wolf Publishing. I think that's what they're called. And currently, it's being printed by Black Chantry Productions. So, John, yeah.
Yep, today we'll be taking a look at the 5th edition Gangrel deck that came out earlier this month, right?
Yeah, from what I understand, it's being shipped out as we speak. If you haven't received yours yet, or your local shop hasn't received it yet, yeah, go back your distributor or something. It might just bear with the guys who usually carry it or supply it to you, because shipping is an issue these days.
It is.
But yeah, and so today we're talking about Gangrel deck, and let's have a quick look at what's available in the deck. So the Gangrel deck has 12 Crypt Cards, like all the others. 10 of them are unique cards. The total of 12 Anarch Vampires. One set titled Vampire, 2 copies of it, so you get 2 Barons in the deck. Lowest capacity is 2, highest capacity is 7, and an average capacity of 4.75. That's I think that's the lowest average capacity of all the 4 decks that were recently released.
Masim Malio 7? Oh, he is. I thought he was an 8. Yep.
Yeah. And on the library side, we have 77 library cards, 12 of which are masters, 13 action cards, 1 ally, 4 retainers, 4 action modifiers, 2 combination or combo cards, 16 combat cards, and 25 reactions. A whole third of the deck is just reactions.
It's a lot of reactions.
It is a lot of reactions. So, John, do you want to take us through the new fancy library cards?
Yeah, we can do that. First up, we have Double Juice. He is an ally, a unique ally, a werewolf with 3 life, 1 strength, and 1 bleed. And he always has +1 stealth. And he has the standard werewolf text where if he has less than his starting life, he gains back 1 during your unlock phase.
Yeah.
+1 stealth is good.
For sure. Yeah. So he's not actually new. I think he was in a promo set somewhere, and one of Black Chantry Productions promises somewhere like I want to say a few months, but I kind of feel like it's a few years now. A few years ago, one of their promises is that eventually they will release all the promo cards that were published by them in various other forms, so people can actually get their hands on them more easily. I kind of like this guy. Uh, it's
Yeah,
a
at two pool cost is not too expensive, and yeah, he does what he's gonna do. I think he's great.
yeah. I mean, you won't keep him around to block. He's probably just one of those that you just keep throwing at your prey, and with 3 life and 1 strength, he doesn't die. And the werewolf text as well. He's pretty decent in terms of keeping himself alive as well.
He's not gonna rip any vampires apart like the other werewolves might, but he's stealthy, so you just send him down to your prey every turn, and he'll do some work.
Yeah. Uh, if you actually, I mean, his stealth as well is not just for bleeding. So if you actually end up using equipment or retainers that don't have any requirements, he can take those actions as well at stealth or at additional stealth. Pretty good. Uh, the next cards, it's going to talk about the next 2 cards kind of together because they're sort of the same-ish. They sit in the same-ish kind of space. And those are Deep Ecology and Eyes of the Wild. So Deep Ecology they're both reaction cards. Deep Ecology is a 3-way discipline card, which means you can play it at one of 3 disciplines. It requires an Anarch. Animalism allows you to get +2 intercept during an action directed at you or a card you control. At Fortitude, it reduces the bleed against you by 2. At Protean, it allows you to unlock a locked vampire by burning a blood. And the second card, Eyes of the Wild, is a card that requires Gangrel, only usable by a locked Gangrel, and it allows the Gangrel to unlock and attempt to block and also burn 1 blood during the action to get additional intercept. And there's a drawback of having to lock the Gangrel after action resolution if they did not successfully block this action.
I think these are good cards.
I think for me, uh, Deep Ecology, I would probably favor Eyes of the Wild with Deep Ecology, even though they kind of both sit in the same space. Just because Deep Ecology tends the uh the the fortitude and the animalism bits are a little bit more conditional. Sometimes you might sit next to someone who doesn't actually bleed uh, at all. Rare,
Yeah,
but
at
it happens.
Fortitude, you kind of need another wake as well, right? Or just be standing around. So that's
Yeah,
the thing.
that's right. So you can't play 2 copies of Deep Ecology in succession to wake and then get intercept.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
That
I
said, +2 intercept against
it,
basically a D action, right?
yep,
Um, that's solid by itself.
it is. It's usually not uncommon for an additional stealth on top of, let's say, an action that already gives you stealth. Maybe they have a card that says bleed at 1 stealth, and then you know um, they've got a location or an equipment that gives additional stealth. That's not uncommon. And 2 stealth, sorry, not 2 stealth, but 2 intercept also kind of makes stealth decks work a little bit harder. You need like 3 stealth cards to get past 2 intercept usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, but all in
And
all,
and when you're playing it together with Eyes of the Wild, you're looking at 3 intercept out of 2 cards, and that's a good deal.
yeah. And on top of that, Eyes of the Wild doesn't require you to make the decision to get the intercept immediately either. So you can play Eyes of the Wild, and then play Deep Ecology and Animalism to get to intercept, and then if if whoever you're blocking manages to generate the third stealth, you can then burn a blood to use the Eyes of the Wild to get the additional intercept. So yeah, I would say, yeah, they sit in the same space, but definitely you wanna you would want to run both of them together in sort of a blocking wallish kind of deck.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Form of the Wolf. Would you like to take us through this, John?
Yeah, I'll talk about Form of the Wolf. uh, one moment. Form of the Wolf.
It's like you're reading notes or something.
Yes, it is. Okay, so it's a combat card. Yep. Only usable before range is determined. A vampire can only play one Form of the Wolf each combat. At inferior protean, it gives +1 strength for that combat. At superior protean, it also gives an optional press this combat.
Yeah, I think it's the only purely protean card that gives you additional strength at combat, as a combat trick. The other sort of ways Gangrel can gain strength, or um, vampires with protean can gain strength, would be it have to be either an action or require a second discipline in order to get that additional strength. Uh,
Sure.
what do you think? Doesn't sound very exciting to me.
Yeah, personally, I just play walking sticks.
Fair enough. Uh, this does kind of allow you to play it on the second round if you cycle into it. So yeah, I don't know. Sticks might be more useful for various combat tricks if you've got some. I guess it's useful maybe if you come up against corner cases like Defenders. Oh,
The way I look at it is kind of an alternative to Aid from Bats.
A
It
from
gets you the press.
A from Bets, yeah, it gets you the press as superior as well. That's right.
Um, and of course, you pair either one with Carrion Crows. So in this deck, I guess they expect you to Carrion Crows, then Form of the Wolf.
Yep, that's probably the plan. Although I think Form of the Wolf doesn't really carve up its own niche because Gangrel just has other combat options, right? Like Bear Skin. Like I said, this the other way they can gain strength and also prevent damage, but you need animalism for it. And then the typical Gangrel sort of aggravated one damage or aggro poke, as you call it, with Claws of the
Mhm.
Dead, which is also in this deck. So I think Gangrel tends to have enough sort of combat options that Form the Wolf is one of those like nice to have, but you don't really need it to pull off any massive combat tricks.
Yeah.
All right, next up, I think this was one of the cards that you were pretty excited about. Form of the Bet.
Yep. Shall I walk through it?
Yes, please.
All right. So it is both a action modifier and a reaction. At inferior protean, it is a action modifier, only usable when a minion attempts to block. The blocking minion gets -1 intercept, and if it is blocked, your vampire gets an optional maneuver but cannot use equipment. Then at superior, Protean is a reaction instead, and you get +1 intercept. And if the block happens, then you get an optional maneuver and cannot use equipment.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a Protean version of random patterns at this point.
Yep,
Yeah, you do kind of get a maneuver, but at the same time you get a drawback of not being able to use equipment. So comparable to random patterns, except that it's swapped. Inferior for superior, superior for inferior.
sure. Yeah, I've used random patterns a fair bit, so I can totally see myself playing Form of the Bat.
Yeah, highly flexible card. Yeah, I mean, typically for me at least, random patterns typically tends to be run for intercept, um, and then stealth or negative intercept as action modifier is more of a nice to have. Although,
Yeah,
yeah, although it kind of also depends on what sort of deck you're running it in, right?
sure. Yeah, the minus intercept is nice as a third or maybe second card after playing actual stealth, because that way they can't just like use another vampire to block and then because they need to build up the intercept again.
Oh yeah, that's true. That is one of the drawbacks of a targeted -1 intercept. It only applies to the 1 minion, not the second one.
Right.
I still like this card though. I agree with you. It's one of the better ones. Just because it's highly flexible.
Yep.
All right, so that's a quick look at the new library cards. Now we have a look at the new Crypt Cards. First one is, ooh, that's a lot of letters in one word. Massimiliano. I got that right? No, I took too many L's. Massimiliano.
You said it right. Your notes are wrong.
Ah, okay. uh, yeah, so he's a gangrel with inferior protein, superior animalism, superior fortitude, 7 capacity, and he's the Anarch Baron of. I'm going to butcher the city's name, but can give it a try anyway. Anarch Baron of Belo Horizonte, and he has +1 strength. I think this is one of the cards that is um, like it's the it's the one vamp that got me excited in this deck. Although him being the
Really?
uh just compared to the others, because he kind of covers the superior animalism and superior fortitude that the deck is kind of thin on, and he's also it's kind of sad though that he's the only Baron.
Yes.
You don't seem too excited about him.
No, I mean, is what you said about the animalism. About I'll bring that up again in a bit.
Yeah, but basically, yeah, the one sad Baron. He's. I kind of feel like he might end up being the one of the two linchpins in the deck. The other one being the next one up, which is Camille Poxtes. I think that's how you pronounce the name. Um, she's a 5 capacity gangrel anarch with inferior animalism, inferior fortitude, and superior protein. And yeah, she gets +1 bleed, which is always good, especially on someone with low capacity.
Yeah, nothing much to say about her. One's bleed is good, and superior protean is something you want in this particular deck, I think.
Yeah, I think across the board the deck generally doesn't have, I guess, star vampires. They're all sort of they do stuff, and they're pretty average, and I think they're meant to just kind of all work together instead of
Yep. Yep.
yeah, star and support. And the next one that sort of caught my attention is this vampire Martina Strun. I can't pronounce this.
Then don't.
Yeah, if you're not looking, her last name is spelled Srnankova, and I can only pronounce Kova whenever it's in front. I can't words. Words are hard. So she's a 6 capacity Anarch Gangrel, inferior animalism, superior fortitude, superior protein, and she gets +1 intercept during bleed actions. +1 intercept is always nice, even if it's conditional. And I think the main reason this card caught my attention is really it kind of looks like the art reminds me of the art from Faithless Looting in Magic the Gathering for some reason.
That's a bit harsh.
I didn't say it's bad.
You mentioned faceless looting.
Fair enough. All right. Yeah. So those are the crypt cards that sort of caught our attentions. What do you think about the deck so far?
Yeah, so what you were saying is the deck kind of the crypt doesn't feel like it matches the deck to me out of the box. The crypt has holes here and there, so like you said, not everyone has superior animalism, but there's a few cards in there that really only work well with superior animalism.
Yeah.
And at the same time, with eco what deep ecology, you want at least inferior animalism, I feel like, and not everyone has even inferior animalism.
Yeah, at the lower end of the capacity curve, like the younger vampires, a lot of them have only like two inferior disciplines. I think someone even has only one superior discipline.
Yeah,
So yeah, it kind of makes Eyes of the Wild a little bit stronger, but also you don't really want to. I mean, in a deck like this, I think you don't really want to lean too much onto like one single card. So having that discipline spread to be able to play deep ecology or even form of the bed at both of having options for both instead of just being stuck on one.
yeah,
Yeah, it keeps your prey, predator, and whoever you're trying to deal with at that point guessing as well.
yeah,
Yeah, because otherwise you get into a situation where it kind of you whoever you're blocking just kind of looks at your minion and go like, oh well, you don't have animalism, so there's no +2 intercept against direct actions, or you don't have um, superior protein, so no intercept from a bat, which yeah, kind of feels bad if someone knows that you're limited on tricks.
yeah. Not yeah. Is not all the crypt can play all the tricks, so you have to kind of be careful with what you have in hand and who's actually acting or blocking.
Yeah, that totally runs against my deck building and VtES playing ethos, which is burn all the brain power when you're building the deck, and then when you're actually at the table, just let the deck decide what you're supposed to do. The more thinking you need to do at the table, the more chances you're gonna make a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I think this deck could do with a reasonable amount of upgrades. So let's look through what we've got on our notes here. So first up, let's look at some of the library cards that we might want to drop from. Oops.
Yep. So shall we look at
Yeah, so the first one I would say worth dropping would be Form of the Wolf. Um, it's really just like I would mention before. It's in a space that it doesn't really need to be. It's one of those nice to have. It's cute, but I don't think it really enhances whatever Gangrel has at this moment.
uh
Uh,
yeah, I think before you kind of need to have some idea which way you're pivoting the deck into because like I said, not all the crypt can do all the tricks. So maybe if you're adjusting the crypt, you might have an idea in mind, okay, maybe I'm leaning more into protein. So maybe consider dropping those things that might need superior animalism. Or inversely, if uh maybe you're playing more animalism, uh there might be cards in animalism that do better than the cards in protean.
Yeah, like bear skin, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Next up, it's a card we haven't talked about yet. It's not new. Murder of Crows. I I personally think Murder of Crows is one of those cards that, on paper, it looks great. Like, who wouldn't want essentially a free Saturday night special that you don't have to actually strike with. It just happens, right? It's environmental damage. But at the same time, it never really works out in play.
Ultimately, I think it's just not worth the action to put it down.
Yeah, it's not worth the action and not worth the one blood either. It's it
Yeah.
yeah. I'm usually like Murder of Crows. I usually would like to see it only after like I get a couple of Raven Spies or a Spot Spike or something with permanent intercept, especially if you're in
Hmm.
a blocking kind of deck.
Hmm.
Because otherwise you spend an action, you're locked. Then you need to spend a wake and you actually spend a whole bunch of intercept before it actually gets used. So yeah, that's another card I would probably replace with just more Raven Spies if you really want the retainers.
Yeah, more Raven Spies or, just carrion crows.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. And then the next one up is Rewilding. It's there's nothing really bad about Rewilding. It's just kind of very situational. I mean, it's kind of like how Erica's cut text sometimes comes in and it's like the best thing ever, and then sometimes it's just a sad bit of text that doesn't do anything.
I don't mind it at one copy. I think it's a matter of taste. If you don't mind just spending your discard action to get rid of it when you don't need it, I think it's worth one
Yeah,
one card slot.
it kind of depends on how quickly you cycle your hand as well, I think, because you don't want to, you know, cycle into it and then essentially be running on a 6 card hand for, from your prey all the way to your predator and back to your turn.
No.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. Sometimes it works one copy for the lows. I would still be keen to cut it, but yeah, I can see it sitting around as something that just because it's something that Gangrel can do.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then the next one up, you probably want to take out from the deck, but this kind of ties back to what you were saying about where you want the deck to hit is Cat's Guidance. Um, yeah, you had some notes about inferior and superior animalism in the
Well,
deck.
yeah, if you actually look through the crypt, right, only 2 of the 10 vampires actually have superior animalism. So Cast Guidance in particular um, isn't the greatest thing at inferior, especially when you have Eyes of the Wild or Deep Ecology as an alternative. Um, and you also have on the Quibi in the deck. So Cast Guidance at inferior, I wouldn't play it myself. And you don't really have the crypt at superior animalism to use it that way reliably. Um, on the same note, I might even say the same thing about Deep Song and Carrion Crows. Unless you adjust the crypt to play more animalism, I probably would cut those
Fair enough. Yeah. Although I think Karen Crow's inferior, it's
with
still
Form of the Wolf.
something playable. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's just because it's environmental damage that you play as a combat trick. Even if it's just 1 damage, depending on how your combat ends up, it might just be worth that play. I mean, as long as you have animalism in your deck or significant amount of animalism in the deck, even if it's inferior, I think Karen Crows you can get away with running a few copies. Cat's Guidance, on the other hand, it is a bit rough if you've only got inferior animalism.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So if we're cutting those, what's good to add? Let's have a look at some of the crypt ideas that we could add into the deck. This first one is a little bit out of the left field, but it's something that I personally thought is fits pretty well in the deck, and that's Andre the Manipulator. Um, he does lack animalism, and he is also not Anarch, but at the same time, 6 capacity with superior fortitude and superior protean if you're going to play a wallish kind of deck, and with access to Foam Bats and Eyes of the Wild, and also with whatever other protean intercept cards we've got out there. I think he, in a pinch, you can comfortably swap him out for um, some of the other vampires in the deck, or even just replace someone that has got a duplicate copy.
Or if that floats your boat.
Was that?
Yeah, I mean, you could see it. I could see it working in a more protean oriented deck.
Yeah, I think he works. The hand size is neat as well, especially if you're playing, you know, more reactive deck where you're kind of dependent on like your ability to cycle is kind of dependent on what your prey and your predators playing. So the plus
Mhm.
2 hand size, I mean, he's a good way to make sure rewilding doesn't become the 7th dead card, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And the next one I think is pretty important to the deck as a whole is Casey Snyder. He's a 6 capacity Anarch Baron of Columbus. He has inferior animalism, inferior fortitude, inferior celerity, and superior protein. I think you mentioned that the deck could do with more Barons.
I mean, that's definitely one way you could pivot the deck. I think we splurged enough on the 2 new Baron reactions when we went over the Bruja deck. Um, definitely can see a place in a Gangrel wall, I think.
Yeah. Um, if you want to see more about the new Baron cards, have a look at the Bruja video where we talk lots about those. I would even say we went a little bit gaga over them, but I'll put a link in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. Yeah, so
Uh, Casey's a promo card, isn't she? He, she, they?
I think so. Let
Yeah,
me,
so
yeah, I think so. Let me have a quick
speaking of
look.
promos, um, yeah, while I was researching or, just trying to figure out what this deck does, over the last week or so, uh, it didn't click for me until we got spoilers of the latest promo Anarch. Um, don't have an image handy, but basically she's an Anarch Baron of Santiago with Protean and Animalism at Superior. Um, so like I was saying earlier, the deck needs a bit more Animalism at Superior, and definitely Barons would be good. So I think she would be just ideal.
Yes, definitely. I think she's the what was it? I've got the image here, I think, and she's the promo card from the latest, well, the 2021 South American VtES Championship. And yeah, uh, if you run her, and I think you can even run her without, wanting to lean into the Baron tech, just because covers that, she fills that gap in the Baron deck. Right, like you mentioned, she's got superior animalism and superior protein. Or is it
Yeah,
42? I think
that's
it's
all
40.
you.
Yeah.
It's both. It's yeah, animalism and 42. For animalism and protean spirit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They've only just announced the card a couple of days ago. But
Yep.
100%. Oh, yeah, I can't find an image of it online. Oops, sorry. Anyway, yeah, also, even if you're leaning into, I mean, I think if you end up playing 3 barons, there really isn't any reason why you wouldn't just run the new baron stuff, right? It's because it's one of those things where, I mean, you're basically playing with one hand behind your back if you, for some reason, decide not to go, um, down that route with 3 barons in the deck.
Well, Eyes of the Wild is more or less comparable to the Wake and Intercept card. What was it called?
Protect, organize resistance.
Yes, that's the one. So, if you're playing in Gangrel, you're not missing that card too much, but the bounce definitely would be missed.
Yeah, it's definitely something you want, no matter how you.
Bait and switch is what I was referring to.
Yep, that's the new not protein, Baron bounce card.
Yep.
Speaking of library cards that you can add, let's have a look at what you, what would be good to consider for this deck. I think definitely Form of Mist. There are, I think, 2 in the deck. Or am I mixing this up with? Oh, sorry, I'm mixing it up with a different, with the 25th anniversary deck. I think Form of Mist, I'll definitely consider at least 2 copies. Um,
At least.
yeah, at least. It's. I mean, without, it doesn't provide that intercept that Form of the Bat does, but it falls within the same sort of space where it actually, you're bringing it to do one thing, and you get the flexibility of it to do another thing. Typically, if you need stealth, I would choose this in a deck that runs Superior Protean over straight Protean Stealth, just because,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean, anytime you strike combat ends and continue action as well as stealth, definitely this one. The other card I think that's really worth adding in the deck is of Meld. I mean, fair. This is a combatish kind of deck. A Gangrel and Protean general combatish kind of clan slash discipline. But at the same time, strike combat end with an option to unlock, um, and considering it's free, is essentially a wake in advance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and as a if you're moving forward, if you're taking action, it also allows you to multi-act. Um, I mean, unfortunately, you have to be blocked before you get to use it, but at least you get to do a second action rather than, just having your action end for the day.
I mean, in this particular deck, there's not too many second actions you would want to take, but just standing up to block is fine
Yeah.
too.
Hey, what's wrong with hunting? Hunting's works. Hunting feeds Eyes of the Wild.
Sure.
Uh, Next up is Diversion, really just because of the Fortitude. I think this is really more relevant if you're playing Casey. That way you kind of have the surprise option of running it off celerity for an additional strike, or I believe you have one vampire in the deck that has inferior thaumaturgy,
I
or
think
was
two.
it is it called blood sorcery now? I think it's called blood sorcery now. But yeah, so it's I think if you need damage prevention, definitely I would run this over Hidden Strength in an Anarch deck, especially if you're predominantly either low on Superior Fortitude um, or just have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as with animalism, the crypt doesn't have a lot of superior fortitude, so it's not like you're ever gonna get the press out of hidden strength.
yeah. And Hidden Strength kind of plays better for higher capacity vampires as well, just because of the blood cost.
Hmm.
Yeah, spending one blood to prevent one damage is not that great.
It's X+1.
All right, so spending one blood to prevent two damage is still not that great.
Yeah,
Yeah. Next up, this is something that you put in the notes: Eyes of the Beast.
Eyes of the Beast. Yeah, so the crypt out of the box has a lot of protean and not so much animalism. So I had to look at what protean intercept there was, and I thought this one was pretty playable.
Yeah, I like it. The -1 stealth really isn't going to be that big a problem, I would think.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, even just don't act and stand up and block is perfectly fine after blocking.
For sure. Yep. Next up, we have Field Training. I think this basically just goes into any Anarch deck that doesn't just sit full of vampires with superior disciplines.
Uh, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like I said just a few seconds ago, um, the deck is heavy on Protean Superior, but there's not a whole lot of animalism and uh, fortitude in the crypt. So it's not like you can reliably use field training to give out more animalism, unless of course you tweak the deck with more superior animalism in the crypt. Then definitely I could see those with animalism training those with protean and the other way around.
Well, you can still use it to train people with inferior protein to give them superior protein as well. The deck does run a fair number of vampires with inferior protein.
Sure.
I think it's like 50% of the crypt has inferior protein, so you do have some flexibility around there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also really good if you're running um, Andre the Manipulator that I mentioned before, because it makes him an anarch as well.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then he can go teach superior fortitude or inferior, whichever it is.
I mean, he's missing inferior animalism, which is key for playing deep ecology. So
Yeah,
there's
someone
that.
can teach him inferior animalism, which is
Massimiliano
and Kuyen, the new Anarch Baron as well.
and Crow. Crow's the other one.
Yeah, and the last one on the list is Power Base Los Angeles. I think this.
I
Sorry,
Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. I think this card kind of just speaks for itself. What do you think?
Uh,
No?
yeah.
Okay. For a moment there, I thought I was gonna say no.
I mean, it's a card I put on my list, but it was a bit further down.
Fair enough. Um, although I kind of think it just goes into the deck because uh, you do have a significant amount of cards in the deck that requires Anarch, if I remember correctly, or enough that ultimately it helps to cycle a card and being able to unlock, or rather pre-wake in this case, an Anarch is always good in a deck that's designed to stop other actions. All right,
Yeah.
next up, sorry. Next up, we have where to take this deck. So the deck's kind of, I think it's meant to kind of be wall-ish with some toolboxy elements. Where would you take this deck in?
I mean, you say toolboxy, but I think it's not in a good way.
Kind of diluted rather than having toolbox elements that support the main plan.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it might just come down to the discipline spread across the deck. I think the deck itself is designed to um just have like a lot of smaller vampires, so you have action benefit over your opponents, but that comes at the cost of having a more coherent discipline spread in terms of like superior disciplines, or
mm,
even some disciplines at all. And I think that kind of makes the deck because I think what it is you're gonna end up in a lot of situations where you draw a card and it's like, oh, this card is awesome, but my vamps can't play it.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think
Uh,
really,
yeah, my problem is more with the crypt. I think the library itself seems fine. I could play the library with a slightly adjusted crypt. Like the two new, rather the two promo barons, Casey and Kuyan, was it?
yep.
If you slide them into the crypt and take out some of the ones without any animalism at all, or uh, any protean at all, uh,
Yeah,
then
then the deck makes a lot
uh,
more sense, basically.
that does make a lot more sense in that case.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many other directions you can take it in terms of game plan. It's going to be a wall no matter what you do. I think um, is more of whether you're playing both Protean and Animalism, or just Protean by itself, or whatever. Alternatively, you could change groups altogether, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, so like you were saying, I mean, out of the box, there isn't much directions you can take the deck in. Um, the Gangrel does have some other options, but that would require a significant change of the cards in the deck, and then at some point, it's no longer the same deck that you got from the shop, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think it's really um, just like I said, if you want to lean into Baron, you could, wall up even more with cards like Organized Resistance. Um, and this is a card that I was a little bit surprised that they didn't put in the deck, which is Army of Rats. Um, I,
Sure.
yeah, it might just be because of the inconsistency around like having animalism. I don't know. Uh,
I mean, the ecology is in there.
Fair enough. Yeah, I thought one copy of Army of Rats would be great, but yeah, I haven't looked at the Nosferatu deck too closely, so maybe Army of Rats was there. And I think the deck could definitely do with Power Base Montreal as well, if you're heading more wall.
Uh, I think it goes in no matter what, which is kind of why it was. I made that hoo hum kind of noise when you mentioned Power Base
Well,
LA.
yeah, you
I
think Montreal
I would
over LA?
Yeah, I think Montreal or LA, but of course both is fine too.
Yeah, I can see the case, but the I just kind of think maybe I just was thinking like the deck as it is, you can't defend Montreal too well, and you don't really want to either to spend the stealth to take more. Montreal back once he leaves. Because you're looking at the deck, you're defending. What are you defending? You're defending Smalling Jack, you're defending the Rack, you're defending Constant Revolution, and then having to defend Montreal's a bit rough if you're not leaning more um, into the wall side of it. But that's
Sure.
just, yeah, that's just kind of how. That's kind of why I thought Montreal. I mean, Montreal's great in the deck. Don't get me wrong. Uh, if you just pop Montreal the deck, I'm not gonna come over and say, "Oh, why the hell did you do that?" But yeah, it's just more me thinking about defending Montreal. Yeah. So you mentioned before as well that it's kind of the crypt that was a little bit confusing for you. Like you thought some of it didn't make a lot of sense given the deck. So I think you've got a note here to say that you could basically play it in with a different crypt. I think you mentioned before as well that it doesn't necessarily have to be Anarch.
Well, yeah, that's just how good Eyes of the Wild is. Eye of the Wild and Form of the Bat. These two can really enable Protean to block in a way they couldn't previously. So maybe take another look at any vampires with superior Protean that might be pretty good at blocking
Yeah, I think
shadows.
I think Nadima comes to mind. She's missing. Oh, she's not actually missing anything. That Serpentis is throwing me off. So Nadima is definitely good. She has +1 intercept to start with. She has Animalism, Fortitude, and Protean. Animalism is at inferior, but you know you can. I think you can get away with 2 superior and 1 inferior, depending on how
Mm-hmm.
you want to tune the deck. Yeah. And the other one that comes to mind would be Rider. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so Rider has a whole bunch of text about combat, but I think the more relevant one in this context is that he gets +1 intercept when blocking D actions. He is a little bit more expensive than what was the other vampire before?
Which other
Martina?
vampire?
Is it Martina?
Nadina? Oh, Martina.
Yeah, Martina
Then the
Snankova.
name couldn't
Yeah,
translate that.
Martina Snankova. He's a little bit more expensive at 7 cap as opposed to her 5 cap. But I think having that trade off of being able to block any D action rather than just bleeds is sorry, to get intercept on any D action rather than just bleeds is I would pay more for that. Also because you're defending, like I mentioned before, you're defending a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that are some of the um, options you can take the deck in. Like you mentioned, with this library, there really isn't. I mean, it's kind of clear which direction you want to go. It's typically, I think it's uh what's that word? Oh, that word's so hard. It's a indication of a good job that BCP has done, I think, to provide a wall deck that kind of doesn't just completely wall up. Because if you're new to the game and you're trying to get into it, you probably don't
Just
want
not
something.
doing anything.
Yeah. So yeah, all in all, I agree with you. I think the crypt could do with a little more coherency around disciplines, but I also get that they're trying to make a younger crypt where you can have a lot of actions while your sort of main quote unquote main vampires are sitting around and basically waiting to block and doing nothing. Right?
Sure.
So, uh, I think that about wraps it up. Thanks for joining us on this video again. If you're keen, we've got part 1 and part 2 in the description below, and part 4 will be coming up in a little bit. Once again, the Ministry deck. Yes, next up is Ministry. I think that's something that we all got pretty excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, John, once again for joining us. It has been great to have you across these 3 videos so far. We'll see you in the 4th one. And yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, as John reminded me before, remember to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment below to let us know what else you would be keen on seeing, or what else do you want us to talk about. Until next time, see ya.
See ya.